This is the first in a series of hangouts, conversations with Ramgiri that we plan. So we'll see how it goes. We're going to hang out and have some conversations about a very practical way of spiritual practice. I have not really ever been very enamored with talking a lot about theory or going into what is it all about and so on. I want to have the actual experience of becoming free. And that experience of becoming free has three major points to it. And the primary one is our innermost heart. So when we talk about the innermost heart, what are we talking about? Not the physical heart, not the emotional heart, but the spiritual heart, the deepest place in us that is already always free and is the place where that enlightened essence is actually already in us. We can say it's the place where God is alive in us. Now, living in that space of the heart, we've all touched on that. We've touched on that in times when we were particularly happy, when we fell in love, of course, but also when we're really peaceful. At the times that really stand out, that may stay in your memory for a long time, when something shifts and you're just really fully alive. That's the experience of that spiritual heart. And there are now two primary things that can get in the way of that. One is our thinking, and the other one is our emotions. So when you have one stressful thought, what happens to the heart? It shuts down immediately. And the same with emotions. So this is just a very small little taste of what we do in our way of working with mind and spirit. That's called HeartSourcing Yoga. And I invite you to find out more from our website, ramgiri.com. So today we have two guests here. We have Paula and Zuleika. And I would love for you two, if you could just take a moment to just say hello and maybe tell us what got you here. Paula, why don't you start?
Thank you, Ramgiri. Hello, everyone, and hello, Zuleika, and thank you, Ramgiri, for this opportunity. I'm here today because last week, to my surprise, I found out that my son experienced with drugs. He experienced with marijuana. And that is something that that was off limits. Basically, we've always said to him that we didn't want him to experience with drugs, and I found out last week that he did. Obviously, as parents, we wish that our children do not have to experience or depend on any type of drug to feel that high that we look for in life, and I think that he should be honest, and he should be transparent with us coming forward, and mostly here on. He should have the courage to tell us when he is experiencing any type of drug or happening in his life, basically. So I hope he won't take drugs again. But I'm very hurt. I'm in a way disappointed, and I would like to ask you. I mean, how does a parent deal with this type of news, and mostly with his dishonesty?
Okay, so let's come back to you in a second, and we'll deal with this issue. But right now, I'd like Zuleika to have a chance to introduce herself and tell us what got you here.
thank you, Ramgiri, for doing this for us. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. What brought me here was my daughter's diagnosis, and she was diagnosed with brain cancer back in November. So I've been dealing with that, and it's brought to surface a lot of, deep issues, I guess, or concerns that, just around life in general. So in the big picture, that's, kind of what brought us more to this.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So we'll start with Paula, and then we'll come to you, Suleika, okay?
Okay.
So Paula wrote me a long email. It was about like this. This is a good part of it. And it's just filled with the very understandable concerns and worries and fears that appear in a parent's life at a moment like that. We can all relate to that totally. And my reaction to that was, we don't want to deal with these questions and this turmoil with the frame of mind, the state of mind that an event like this throws us into. We have two things here. We have the issues and, what do we do? How do we best parent our children? How do we avoid them from getting into trouble and so on, But we also have the instrument with which we are dealing with that, which is our mind in this case, your emotional state, your mental state. And psychology, of course, would now get into those questions, and I've done that for many years, get into these questions and start to make sense of it and so on. And I learned over many years that I no longer find that all that effective. I find it much more effective to go straight to the disturbance in the mind or the emotions that are caused by an event like this and clear that. And I find that then the resolution or the solutions will come much more natural. It's still not effortless, I'm not saying this by any means, but they will come much more quicker because the mind is clear, the emotions are clear. So I asked Paula to go to the skill that we use to clear the mind, because from what I gathered from our communication, the most disturbance was not in the emotions so much, but in the mind, and of course they're both affected. So I had her fill out a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. That's a feature of the work of Byron Katie, which I found after decades of working with this kind of stuff to be the most effective tool to really clear the mind very quickly. And we identified on that worksheet, there's a whole number of different stressful thoughts. The worksheet is designed to help us make a list of our stressful thoughts which disturb the mind. So we identified, for the sake of our work here today, 2 or 3 of the most stressful ones. And it starts with, I want my son to be open and honest with his father and me. So what we do with this now is we take that thought and we put it through a series of questions, 4 questions, and something called a turnaround. And more information of that is available on our website, on Byron Katie's website, which is thework.com, and I can refer you to that. But for now, let's just jump into it, because most of the people listening are most likely already going to be familiar with some of that. So, Paula.
Yes.
You want him to be open and honest with his father and you. First question, is that true? Yes or no?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Can you absolutely know that it's true?
Yes.
Yes, of course. Now, how do you react when you believe you want him to be open and honest with his father and you perceive him as not open and honest?
Hurt. Disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Furious.
Where do you feel that in your body?
On my chest.
Right. And then how do you treat him when you believe this thought?
I scold him. I scold him. I point fingers a lot. That's what I do.
Yeah, right. And how do you treat yourself when you believe that thought?
Obviously not well, because I'm entertaining these thoughts and these emotions. I'm just letting it flow without trying to address it. So.
Okay. So in this situation, who would you be without this thought, I want him to be open and honest?
Who would I be without this thought?
Yeah. Picture yourself with him without this thought. What's it like to be with him without this thought?
Would be trusting again.
Yeah. That may be something to go for. So let's take a step further. We're going to the turnarounds. I want him to be open and honest with his father and me. How would you turn that around?
I don't want him to be honest with his father and me.
Well, so this may sound at first like a really absurd thought, but how could it be true?
It couldn't. I mean, I want him to be honest.
Right. And yet here's the turnaround. So this is the challenge here is to become still and look at this. In this case, this is a seemingly impossible thought. I don't want him to be open and honest with me. And sit with that for a moment and just really ask yourself the question, how could that be true?
No, I mean, I want him to be honest.
Okay, so let's go a step further. Can you find another turnaround?
He
I
can't.
want, no. I want me.
I want to be honest.
I want me to be honest.
Okay, with me.
With me, yeah.
I want to be honest with me.
Yeah. So do you have any examples of how you haven't been honest with you?
In this whole ordeal?
Yeah, that's one place to look, but you can look other places too. Have you ever not been open and honest?
With him? In certain cases, mostly recently for his own security, yes.
Okay. And have you ever not been open and honest just for the sake of not being open and honest in your life?
Not for a while. Not for a while.
I'm saying ever.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Very much so. Absolutely.
Good. So you can see you can relate.
Yes, of course I can relate. I remember. I do remember.
Right. You've been there. Okay. So it's not completely unknown territory.
Oh, it's not.
All right.
I
Okay.
remember.
So now let's go a little step further and say, I want me to be honest with me about him.
I want to be honest with myself about him.
So how have you not been honest with you about him and about the situation?
I guess that there is a part of me that knows that he's going through what many kids and what many of us went through too, or that he's going to continue living his own experiences. So I have to somehow be honest with myself about that.
Yeah, exactly. How does that feel when you realize that?
It feels good, but a little scary.
Well, we're talking about you being honest with you. Not the other things that the mind comes up with now, right? So how does you being honest with you feel?
No, it puts me at ease, absolutely.
Right, right.
It feels more
So
peaceful.
then the other turnaround, I want me to be open and honest with him.
Okay.
Can you find evidence for that? How haven't you been?
How haven't I been honest with him?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sometimes I will keep information to myself, or I will come up with a story so that he freaks out a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
and not thinks about ever doing it again.
Right. And now you told me you're going like this with him. Does that look like openness?
No.
Good point. So let's move on. We may come back to that. The other thought that you had, one other thought, was that he should not use drugs. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you react when you believe that thought?
Determined.
I'm sorry?
Determined.
Determined? Determined for what?
To make sure that he doesn't take drugs.
Okay.
I mean, we try. I mean, well, it's, again, we're parents, and that's my biggest wish, is that he doesn't, yes.
Yeah, okay. So how does it feel to have this thought that he should not use drugs, and here he's been caught in the act?
Again, disappointed, fearful,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
concerned.
Right. And again, picture yourself with him without this thought. What's that like?
It's lovely.
Yeah. So which mother, if you were him, which mother would you really listen to and want to follow? The mother with those thoughts or the mother without? Which mother would you really want to listen to?
The one without.
Yeah.
Well, it's it's difficult. It's a hard question because.
No, it's not a hard question to put yourself into the shoes of your son. He is just human like the rest of us, and it's not all that hard. Is it?
No, but sometimes I think he's sometimes relieved that I caught him, that I'm there and.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you, the mother you are with these thoughts and the mother you are without these thoughts. Which one is it going to be easier for him to relate to listen to?
The one without these thoughts. The
Yeah.
one without these thoughts, yeah.
Right. Okay. So here's another one. Camilo is dishonest and unconscious. No, wait a minute. We got to go back. Forgot the turnarounds on this. Camilo should not use drugs. How would you turn it around?
Well, the first one, the straight turnaround is Camilo should use drugs.
Yeah. And how is that true?
Not true. Not true.
Okay. So what's the reality here? Did he use drugs or not?
Yes, he did.
Okay. So it's true.
Yes.
He should use drugs, not because it's a good thing or anything, but because he did.
Well, that's a reality, yes.
Right? See, what happens is when we say, oh, he shouldn't use drugs, we don't even deal with reality. We have this powerful thought and we project it onto them. And then when you do that, how do you see him?
When I do,
when you project the thought he shouldn't use drugs, and here it's right in front of you, you have proof that he has used drugs. How do you relate to him when you're in the grip of this thought?
no, it's scary, of course. No, it's scary. It's disappointing.
When you're scared, how do you think he feels?
Also scared.
Right. Yeah. And that'll teach him.
Right.
Will it?
Right. That's more or less how the messages go. Yeah.
Well, a young boy has got to find his own power, and they seek often what's scary.
Mm. True.
Okay. So he should use drugs when he does, or until he doesn't.
Okay. Camilo should use drugs until he realizes that he has to stop.
Well, that's your other story here, right? It's the same thing before when we said you want him to be open and dishonest and honest with you. When you turn that around, I don't want him to be open and honest with you. Well, not when he is, when he isn't open and honest. Does that make sense? You see, if you want to be there for the reality of that moment, and he's not honest and open, do you want to be there for that, or do you want to be in your mind?
No, I want to be there, of course.
Yeah. So when he is not open and honest, then that is what's happening. And so we can say, well, here we see this is happening, so it should be happening now. This says nothing about tomorrow or some other time.
Okay.
But what we do is we have these thoughts, something is happening, oh my God, it shouldn't be happening, and we freak ourselves out.
Mm-hmm.
We get totally upset. Our mind is in a scramble, our emotions are in turmoil, and can we really deal with the situation with the kind of clear mind and balanced emotional state that it requires?
Yeah, no, we can't.
Exactly. That's why we're doing this work, to clear the mind. What we do then about the situation comes out of that mind that is more clear. But until we have a clear mind, we'll just be in confusion. So then there's another turnaround. He should not use drugs. How else would you turn that around? I should not use drugs.
Drugs, yes.
Okay. So any proof for that?
Yes.
Like?
I should not use drugs. It's not good for me. It's not healthy.
Okay. So have you always known that?
No.
Okay. Right. So that goes with drugs that you buy, right? But then there's another type of drug, which is a kind of chemistry that happens in our head and our whole body when we get into powerful emotions.
Right.
Every thought and emotion we have is a biochemical event. So we get addicted to these drugs, to certain types of upset, certain types of worry, certain types of depression maybe, or anger.
Right.
Right? Did any of this happen in this incident with you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no.
You've been taking drugs.
Yeah, in a way, but through emotions, yes, we do. We do have a very chemical imbalance, don't we?
Good to know. So here we go. You should not take drugs.
Take
Show
drugs.
him how it's done.
That's a good turnaround. Yes.
Right, yeah. So let's go to Camilo is dishonest and unconscious. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And why don't we just turn it around?
Camilo is honest and conscious.
Do you have any examples of that?
I guess he's doing what he's following his desires, his inclinations, his impulses.
Okay. And is he generally honest and conscious as much as he can at his age?
I would like to think so.
Okay.
I would like to think so, yes.
Yeah. So which son do you react to, do you relate to, when you believe he is unconscious and dishonest? How do you see him?
I don't like him when he's like that, obviously. I want him clear, basically. I want clarity.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So how do you see him? As unclear,
mm-hmm.
as unconscious, as dishonest?
Yeah, dark, basically.
Dark, yeah. Right. And how do you see him when you see him as honest and conscious?
Happy, clarity, clear,
Okay, so now we're not making believe anything here. It's just that both are there. Both aspects are there in this young man. Can you see that?
Yes.
Right, okay. So then you relate to the one that is most predominant in your mind.
Mm-hmm. And it's a clear one. I mean, that's who I know that he is. That's the one that's most predominant, actually.
Which is?
The clear.
Okay. So if you relate to him like that, how is he going to be able to relate to you?
If I relate to the clear sun?
Yeah.
I guess he'll be honest, yeah.
And clear.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a matter of mirrors, this business of life.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I guess so, yes.
And then there's another turnaround. He's dishonest and unconscious.
I should be honest and conscious.
I am
I am.
dishonest and unconscious.
I am dishonest and unconscious.
So how can you find that? Where do you find that?
Again, in the knowing that he also needs to go through the experiences in his life. I mean, he needs to go through his own path, basically.
And how is that proof that you are dishonest and unconscious?
Because I'm telling him not to.
Exactly.
Because I'm telling him not to.
Yeah.
No.
Can you find any other way that you've been dishonest and unconscious with him?
Mm. Again, by coming up with stories so that he, or not telling, or trying to protect them, basically, trying to protect them, and sometimes not telling the whole truth to precisely to make sure I keep them somehow protected.
Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing at this age. We have to be appropriate for the age that we're talking to with our messages. Mm. But what comes to me is, again, you have a son who you can see as not open, dishonest, unconscious, and he shouldn't use drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're at a war with your son, aren't you?
Yes.
Right. Now, when you're at war with a teenager, who's going to win that war?
No one.
Oh, yes. Someone will.
The
The
teenager?
teenager wins all the time. They may hide it from you, but they will win all the time.
Why?
Because if you're at a war with them, have you ever been at a war with your parents back then?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. So who won?
I don't know. Nobody did. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, generally they may rein in their behavior a little bit, but in the end they're going to do what they want to do.
Right.
Now, what they want to do can change, and it may depend on whether they have a parent to talk to who is open and honest and not addicted to drugs running in her head and in her emotions, and really present. Then what they want may change. But when there's a war, who's going to listen to somebody who goes like this?
True.
It's human nature to run up a wall. And of course he's going to say, yes, mom, and all of that stuff. But you either join him where he is, or you'll be separate from him. And separation always hurts. It hurts you and it hurts him.
Right.
So when you want to join him, you have to join him where he is. You have no other choice because that's where he is.
Mm-hmm.
You can't join him, or I should say, you can't join the son you want to have. You have to join the one you have.
Right.
And I know there's a lot of love between you and him. So if you join him, there may be a beautiful exchange of communication and trust and warmth and love. That's very attractive.
There is. There
Yeah,
is.
if you have somebody who relates to you that way, would you want to do what they suggest? What they know is better for you?
Mm-hmm.
More likely. Maybe not 100% for certain, because like you said, they have to make their own experiences. But we have all learned to raise our kids through the means of war. We've all lived in a society that taught us that war works.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just a little tougher on myself, then I'll succeed. If I'm just, tougher on my kid, then he'll listen to me.
Yes. True.
And what is really the effect of that?
Resistance.
Resistance, and it's a lifelong pattern of distance, or possibly lifelong pattern of distance, of mistrust, of, well, they don't understand me, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Have you tried to find out what got him to try the drugs?
Yes, I know what got him into.
Okay. But have you tried to join him in the state of mind and really with openness, not with, why did you do that?
Right. No. I actually have
Okay,
trying because of
good.
my hope is to be able to teach him techniques to be able to deal with stressful emotions and try to not have to resort to drugs in the future.
Well, so good. That's the direction where I would go. And just understand or imagine if you were in his place, how could you relate better to your mother? If she was open, honest, trusting, conscious that you are a kid who is doing what pretty much all the other kids are doing, pretty much, probably, I would say, or at least in his group.
Well, I would be more honest, obviously.
Yeah.
I would be more welcoming, yeah.
Now, we just did a little sampling of your worksheet of the stressful thoughts in this matter, and behind them there is a whole other layer that says, as a mother, I should. My role as a mother is to, you see,
Right.
I would really look at those also.
My expectations with myself, basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
the expectations with yourself, and the way we learn war. As a mother, you need to make sure that your kids don't use drugs. Well, if that's true, then a very great percentage of the mothers in this time and age are failures. So, what's true is that what happens, happens. And then we have to deal with it in a way that works. And what works, in my experience, is not war with our own children, but to be open and understanding and pay attention and to join them where they are. To join them in their incredible world, where they become your teachers, where you can get down on their level and say, yeah, let me in. Let me see what's going on in your life,
Mm-hmm.
But for that, we have to be open and honest and trusting.
Right.
Not trusting blindly, I'm not saying that at all, right? But trusting also your mind, that your skills, that you can clear your mind and you can meet him where he is. Well, I'm sure you have some more work to do on this, but I'm looking at this sheet again that you sent me, and there's a lot of issues on here and questions that are, important to deal with, but deal with them after you clear your mind, after you clear your emotions, after you can be present with him, after you see him again for what he is, and not the kid who was, and so on.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Ramgiri.
All right, love. Suleika.
Yes.
So you told us a little bit, just a little snippet of what happened to your daughter. Why don't you give us a little bit more? I've been somewhat at some distance part of this story, and you've really dealt with it in an amazing way. And I would love for you to share just a little bit of that, a few snippets, 2-minute summary of it, maybe, if you can.
She was diagnosed in November, and she was 2 at the time, and so she's undergone several brain surgeries, and 6 rounds of chemo, and 3 of them were very high doses with stem cell transplant. And each event has brought up, just brought layers and layers of things to the surface. And for me, it's just been when you deal with one, another one replaces it. So, and it just seems to get deeper and deeper.
So what kind of, give me an example of what you're talking about.
Well, it really started for me the night that I shared with you. That was probably a few nights prior to her diagnosis, where I had that thing in the middle of the night that woke me up, and where I realized that everything was nothing. I had that, and then from there it just really started to go. I mean, because it could go as deep as one's ready to go with it. The one that's more recent for me is the issue of God. Obviously, God comes up a lot in dealing with death, I think, or when you're that close to death, or either your own or somebody extremely dear to you. There comes the almost inclination to want to blame something outside of yourself for what's happening. And that's gone back and forth through the last 7 months. And although I've made some headway with it, I keep getting stuck at the same place.
Okay. So you told me that you keep waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And what happens?
I get a lot of profound realizations. We won't go through all of those here. I realize we're on a time schedule, but a lot of things, it's where a lot of the stressful thoughts, for example, that you just went through with Paula, I accumulate a ton of stressful thoughts in any given day. I mean, when you're dealing with brain cancer and my life dream was to have a daughter, and to have that, sitting at that store almost every day with the fear of it coming back, you're dealing a lot with the present moment, the future, the past, projections, the death of your child, the death of yourself. There's a lot that comes up and surfaces. So in any given day, I can have 10 extremely stressful thoughts surface, and I've had the grace that a good number of them at the hour of 2-ish and 3 in the morning start to really self-resolve, and I find a lot of peace there. And it's kind of happened for the last 7 months, with a new one surfacing almost every day.
Right. Yeah. So let me just ask you real quick for our audience, what was your experience with the work? Because this is very important for you to really deal with your thinking in this extreme situation.
Well, I had the good fortune of coming upon the work of 5 years ago or so, and also the good fortune of meeting you shortly after that. So I've had a considerable amount of really serious life issues surface in that time period. I got familiar with the work. And even though at the time of her diagnosis, I was actually working a lot more with HeartSourcing, it was, this experience has opened me up a lot more towards that, the profoundness of the heart and living out of the heart.
Yeah.
And unconditional love and acceptance and surrender that has to come with that. And it's not surrender in just a mild thinking form. It needs to be a complete surrender. It needs, for peace to arrive in in the situations that I've felt that have, that were the most disturbing, they had to be complete surrender with everything, and it had to be, everything had to go, you know. So the one that, like I said, that's, coming up a lot for me is the projection of God. And although I can understand that it's a projection that I shoot outside of myself, and I hope I do this justice and explanation, God becomes an entity for a lot of us, a figure that we pray to or ask for things, or blame if things don't come to fruition or give us what we want. And then we live out of that space that keeps creating of, victimization, or why does this happen to me, and I've realized in this process a lot that the oneness of everything with the universe. And then I fall back into that separation of there is something that drives and directs the universe. And so I get caught there. And I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm saying, but...
Well, you're obviously dealing with these issues because you've had experiences both in terms of your education, where you were raised to believe in an external God, and in terms of your personal spiritual practice, where you saw something else. What did you sense there in those moments?
I've had many situations arrive through the course, from her being many times, many trips to the ICU where I didn't know if she was going to make it or not, that that brought me to where I said, where you do that complete surrender, there's a moment where it happens. That's happened for me. And in those moments, I can feel that connectedness. And it's not, I can't do justice putting it into words. It's so vast, and it's everything. And I can see it in the table that's even holding her up, or the machine that's telling the nurses that the vitals have gone wrong, and they come in, and it's just all serving itself in this way that's pure love. And as a witness to that, it's impossible to miss how God is everything.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, one way of getting there is to say, what do you identify with? You identify with yourself as her mother. She's your child. You have this body, this personality, this history, this job, and so on. But who or what is experiencing all of that? These are all experiences you're having.
That's an interesting...
Right? What is experiencing that?
Oh, I don't know. It's
Well, you do know. It's actually very simple. Consciousness is experiencing all that. And that consciousness has a profound love.
That's
correct?
what it feels like, yes.
Yes, exactly. So you know what is experiencing all that. So that's when we're beyond the stuff that we observe.
Yeah.
And we can't define consciousness, but we can experience it. We experience it all the time. We're just not aware of it. We fall into identifying and fretting about the stuff that we observe.
Oh my gosh, I see what you're saying.
Right? So this consciousness is what we are. And this consciousness observes everything. This consciousness and love observes and loves everything unconditionally. It's just present. Its nature is to be present and to be conscious and to love.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is that this consciousness has this aspect of loving. Now, of course, we are still sort of limited in our understanding of the depth of this consciousness, but we can understand that everything we experience in that consciousness. It arises in that consciousness, in that love, correct?
Yeah.
We're conditioned to believe that we're these bodies and these people, and that things should go the way we want them to go.
Yeah. A lot of suffering there.
Yeah. So you see, in my book, there's nothing anymore that's bad. There used to be a lot, like a whole world full of badness. But I've looked at this and I've seen that there's nothing that is bad because everything is the way it is. And unless I want to manipulate it, I want it to be different, I want it to fit my prejudices or my preferences, I can be in a state of peace and equanimity and presence and deep love. Well, that's how I want to live my life.
Yeah.
But it comes at a cost, and the cost is that you have to look at your attachments, your desires, your fears, and you have to get free of them because they will throw you back into that clinging, that desire, that fear. That is nothing but suffering and confusion. And because we can go to this place when we're really still and we see, oh, consciousness experiencing all of that, and I can't call it my consciousness, it's just consciousness. Consciousness is experiencing all this, and in this consciousness, there is this tremendous love. That tells me something about the nature of what we call God. And on the cosmic level, you know, we're still kind of limited here into our little lives and the conditioning of who we think we are. But on the cosmic level, it's not any different. That consciousness is filled with love. And when we open to that, we come to really taste, even in a, or especially actually in a situation like yours, that what we call God, this cosmic consciousness and love, that it is love, that there is an awareness here that guides everything perfectly. That comes with experience, and of course we cannot get that experience when we're stuck in a place that's saying God should do this, and what the hell is the matter with him, and it's usually a him. You know, when we have these kind of rather limited and conditioned ideas about the ultimate. The ultimate cannot be separate from us. How else would it be the ultimate? The ultimate has to be in and of everything.
That brings me to the second part that I was talking to you about, which is, you know, things happen. to some, to others not. And where I was asking you about, is the universe intimate in that way? Is it, I don't even know if that's the correct word, but...
Well, but you can answer that. Just think about those times that you spent with her when there was an emergency and you were in the ER with her.
Every time.
Yeah, right.
Every time.
There we go. That's the answer to your question right there. When we get free, and in those moments you do get free of our stressful thoughts, in those moments you are simply present, aren't you?
Yeah.
And what's that experience?
It's beautiful. That could be the most, I think probably almost every human's worst nightmare would be to lose a child if they had to, pick. And even in those moments where it was the scariest, it definitely, when I could stay present like that, even through that, I could feel that, the peace in it and the beauty of it. And can find where cancer is a beautiful thing. I mean, it opens people's hearts in a way that, I had said one time in one of my posts that, if I could go into detail of all of the things that people have done around, for us, it would restore the faith of so many people's in humanity, because people are so loving and kind, and I just can't see cancer, I guess, in the way that, some people say cancer sucks. I mean, I don't want my daughter to die, believe me, I don't want that, but I can also see its gift in what it brings to so many people. They get to find their heart,
Yeah. So in the middle of your worst nightmare, you're finding that vast love.
Yeah.
And that's really the secret. I mean, we have to, in order to find that love, we have to go into the darkest places, the places that scare us, and not necessarily in the way you did it, because you were sort of thrown in there by your daughter's diagnosis and illness. But many people think our spiritual life is like this la-di-da wonderful thing, and it is. But it has to be proven true by us finding that love, that unconditional, powerful acceptance right in the deepest places that scare us.
Yeah.
And you're finding it.
Thank you for helping me with that.
God is that love that you're tasting in those moments. And of course, we cannot feel it if we're stuck in our stressful thoughts and our emotions. Those are the great obstructions that hinder us from meeting ourselves in that place where there's no difference between us and what we call God, where that presence of God is inside of us. And isn't that the goal, to find that out?
Yeah.
And then we find that when we're really committed to this path of liberation and look deeply at our challenges, we find that everything helps us, everything supports us. And we need the challenges because those particularly make us grow. And of course, we do everything we can to overcome the challenges. That goes without saying. But when we understand this basic goodness of everything that can possibly happen, good and bad, so this is a goodness that has no opposite. When we understand that, a lot of the fear of life and this old attitude that the world is a place of suffering and God isn't here, God is somewhere up there or someplace, we get free of that and we find out that God is everywhere at all times. And we can access that reality particularly, directly, in our innermost heart.
It's so true what you're saying. I had the memory of having a difficult time where she had been put back into the ICU, and another one of those moments that I didn't know she would make it or not, and a chair just being there and having the thought to myself, it's just how much the universe serves us. Like, that's exactly what I needed, was a chair to sit down, because it's just it gets that simple.
Yeah. And it's so true. People who in their minds would say, well, you're just making that up. No, you're not. I know exactly. I had an experience just like that with a chair, where I needed a chair and it was right there in a place where I had never seen a chair. And I knew it was put there because I needed it in that moment. And a simple thing like a chair can suddenly become an experience of grace and an experience of that true, profound caring of the universe.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the memory of thinking to myself, like, even that is the face of God. Like, you just, nothing could have known I needed it more.
Yeah. I mean, my experience is that the more clear I get, the more I can see that loving spirit in every tiniest detail of life. That there's really nothing that is outside of that. And like I said, there's the challenging things and the peaceful things and the joyful things, all of it. All of it serves us. All of it is there to help us on this path to liberation. Now, the unfortunate people who fully identify with their persona, with their person, they don't have that experience. They can't, because they just see the ups and downs of life and ups and downs, but they have no perspective of a place of freedom, of ultimate consciousness. And so their ups and downs are going up and down, and they go in circles. They go around and around and around and around, from lifetime to lifetime. But when you have that goal, that ultimate, the thought of enlightenment, you get to see, the more clear your mind gets, you get to see more clearly how everything is part of God, and everything helps us, everything supports us, assists us. There's love in literally everything. There's love in your son, Paula, taking drugs. If Zuleika can see it in her daughter in the ICU, like inches from death, you can see it in your son, but you have to look. If we don't look, we can't see it. If we're stuck in our stressful thoughts, we're blind. So in order to deal with reality, like in your case, Paula, we have to clear our, get the blinders away from our eyes so we can actually see and deal with the situations with some kind of sense and clarity. I said that before, but I think it got more clear to me now that we're talking to Zuleika.
Absolutely. Thank you, Suleika. It does put a different perspective to everything, yes.
You're welcome.
Sometimes it's easier to see when the situation is very extreme, because the extremeness of it can sometimes just remove the mind. I mean, it's like too much to think it out. And then an epiphany can occur. A moment occurs where you just fall into that direct experience of the presence of this ultimate spirit,
Right.
which is you.
And precisely the epiphany, the epiphany of love that Suleika received. I mean, is beautiful. Is what we all strive here for.
And it's such, your situation with your son is such an opportunity for that. You know, it's like the apple cart got just turned over, and everyone is scrambling to make sense of it or to come to new rules in the game. And what can be more powerful than your love in that moment, your unconditional love for your son? And I know that's there, but it's covered up, it's obscured by thoughts and emotions and the idea as a mother I have to you know, and it's not working like that. Love is the most powerful medicine.
Mm-hmm.
True.
And you know, if we express just a little bit of it, the wonder of it is that, first of all, when we give it away, we get more. And that we realize when we give it, it is good for the person who receives it. There's more of that flowing back and forth. But the most incredible thing is that there's no limit ever to it. We can find it flowing from the innermost heart into every moment. Even to the point that we now can observe the stressful thoughts and emotions that block us. And then just get down to our work and to remove it, remove it, remove it until we can live in that heart all the time, in that presence. You know, there's a lot of people talk about presence and about the now and so on, so that message has gotten around yet. When Ramdas wrote Be Here Now, that was like total news in our society. Now the word has gotten around. But when we arrive in the presence, you know, when you arrive with your son, when you arrive with your daughter, Suleika, what do we do with that presence? When we're there without a thought, without a concept, without a barrier between us and them, what do you do with that? Well, with that, naturally, the love that is just our true being arises. And then see what you say out of that to your son, Paula.
Mm.
And, you know, nobody says it's easy. What we're doing, this path to enlightenment, is the most difficult thing in the world. And it's the most worthwhile. It's easy for us to fall into our old, habitual, conditioned reactivity. But it's not easy to live there.
Yeah.
So now let's just, to close this, let's just spend, the three of us and everyone who's watching, let's just spend a moment and go into that heart and meet there. And find that place where there's an ease deep down. And if you have a hard time finding it, let it flow into you from inside and also from us. Let's do this together in this moment. And this also works if you're watching this broadcast later. Time is not a limit to love, time or space. So let's just take 2 or 3 minutes to let the awareness sink down into the heart, into your innermost core, beyond body, beyond emotions, beyond thought. There's a place of absolute stillness and all-encompassing love. And we are one in this place because we're not separate as beings, but one as the consciousness and love that experiences itself through my body and your body and everyone else's body. One mind, one heart. Okay, you don't have to leave this state, but we're going to close our broadcast here. Thank you again, Paula and Suleika.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramgiri. Thank you,
You're very welcome.
Suleika.
And I was going to wish you good luck, but I'm not, because this is not a matter of luck. This is a matter of recognizing the grace that is always there in us and around us. And we share it in the way we are together. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Ramgiri. Goodbye.